Hi there, it's Mark, and welcome to Book-ramble. John at Must Read More kindly tagged me for the Bookish Elements tag, which was created by Sarah at My Granny Era. So thank you to both, but specifically John for tagging me. And it's all about books and how we read them and treat them. So here's my answers. How do you feel about foreshadowing or dropped hints? Well, they're quite common, but often I've read books and didn't realise they were in fact foreshadowing because I wasn't aware of what's coming up. It's plainly obvious sometimes that does occur, but I don't have a problem with it. I expect it. We get it in quite a few mediums like film and so on. So yeah, foreshadowing. I've done it myself in my own writing, and it's really like a prompt. I think it's based on the old, well, certainly oral tradition, that if you mention something 3 times, then that awakens the listener that what you're saying is important. But also, if you say something quite dramatic and then it comes up again it gets their attention. It's a wonderful device to use. Any author will do that to keep your attention. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you can foreshadow an event but not tell what the event is, it's like a little nugget that you've found. Oh yeah, I remember that now, blah, blah, blah. But like I say, so many books I've read in the past and wasn't aware that there was a foreshadowing coming up. So yeah, dropped hints, don't have a problem, so long as they're not obviously contrived. And that's difficult to even explain. But I don't have a problem with foreshadowing. Bookmarks, what do you use? How do you feel about bending the corners down? Now, John doesn't like the corners being put down, but I am terrible at that. I'll give you an example. I'm slowly going through this one, and it's the picture of Dorian Gray. Well, you can see where yeah, okay. So I bend the pages terribly. I also write in the... Is that actually coming up? Yeah, inscriptions and annotations. So I'm going to give you a little foreshadowing. There you go. I'm terrible. Bookmarks, I have been given one recently. This one. And I've got this one. So they are wonderful. People know I like reading and they will get these bookmarks. And I do use them. And actually, on this one, it's from Christchurch. My old mate Steve dropped me a line on it as well. So I just like keeping them, if anything, for keepsake, if they are specifically pertinent or somebody's left a message on them or whatever. So I do like bookmarks. What I tend to do, although I haven't done it for a while, I'm just starting doing it again, is getting these and I slip them into the book. Because then I can write notes on them if extra. And that's specifically something I've adopted since doing this. Because it's all right writing in the book. But often, days later when I'm coming to talk about it, and in my case it could be months later, because Dorian Gray, I'm reading little bits when I can, and I'm at it now for about 2 months. When I come to record, I'll forget necessarily the flow. Although with that one, that's actually not a good example because I remember it quite well. And if you do know the picture of Dorian Gray, I've just got to the bit where Dorian is now engaged to Sybil Vane. So I got to that point, and often I just require little joggers to remind myself, which I write down. And again, I've talked about bending the corners. I'm a terrible book murderer. I'm terrible at them. And the reason being, because I've got shed loads of pens and stuff. Now, Grammaticus Books has talked a lot about this guy lately. And I was out perusing a local thrift shop and I saw it. Roger Zelazny, The Great Book of Amber. So I've started reading, as you can see, 9 Princes in Amber. And I tend to put these in. So, and look, it's an old book anyway. It's all battered and bruised. If it was an original manuscript, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. But unfortunately, I do bend and I do break. And if I pick up a second-hand book and it's similar, it doesn't bother me. The more engagement that it has had, the better I like it, to be honest. And especially if people have previously left notes. I do like that because certainly at university I came across many books like that. And a lot of the library books were second-hand, that previous students had done the courses that I were doing. And if I could find a book that was the case rather than a new print, I loved it because it gave like insights as to what they had underlined and what they considered important. I think I've gone off track with that one with number 2. I've gone to number 3. Forgotten bookmarks. Have you ever found something strange in a book? Yeah. I'll take a drink to gird my loins on this one. I bought a second-hand book once. Got home, opened it, and there was a woman's pad inside. Thankfully, and it was not used. Yeah, a woman must have used that as a bookmark of such. You do get strange things. I went to Paris once, and I went into many bookstores on the left bank. This was in the mid to late 1980s. Wonderful books. In fact, I came across one bookstore where the owner was British. And, of course, a lot of the books were in French, and I don't speak French or read it. But I got a few books from there, and they're really books that I don't think I would have found anywhere else. But inside, there were letters with some. They were going back and forth with owners, obviously left in there by the owner. So you do find some strange things in books, wonderful finds. Life, how wonderful is it? But I don't think I've found anything stranger than that. 4. Inscriptions and annotations. How do you feel about writing in a book? Yeah. How do you annotate if you do? Again, John doesn't like... And I found this strange, John. He doesn't like yellow highlighting. He doesn't mind pink. I often use green. Stands out better. But I will murder books in that regard. I'm reading this. And I believe the film is out shortly. Del Toro's film. I've spoken to my wife regarding this. She teaches the English language to senior students. And she, too, did philosophy like I did at university. And I've said, is it a problem? She said, no, you're engaging with the text. I understand why some people don't like writing, and they're offended when you do such things to wonderful books. But, for instance, here, Shelley mentions the word demon, and I've put, but she spelt it as daimon, the old Greek word for soul or spirit. And I've made the note, obviously in green, and then put around it to make it stand out more when I come to talk about it. And then I've said demon or daimon. There is a difference, and often it's misunderstood. And the Greek word daimon in the Bible, for instance, was translated into demon in English, and I think it's caused slight contrafabulations ever since. So, yes, I will annotate them to death. I love writing in books. My own books that I've written, if anybody took it and underlined stuff, and I'd be delighted. I don't think the authors care how we deal with the books. They are ours. We're not dealing now this is my opinion, and I know someone's going to disagree, but we're not dealing with precious items like gold or wills or certain documents, unless it's a first edition, or of sentimental value to someone. Then you shouldn't do it. But to not do it just because it's a book, I don't necessarily agree with. I think you should engage with the text. And for myself, when I taught students, I always said that we tend to be visual, but if you're only sat there listening to a teacher and making no notes, you're not going to remember almost half of it within a couple of days, probably less than 20%. If you write down notes specifically if it's a book in the book, and I encourage students to write in books. In fact, when I did the Republic in the schools, I got them to buy cheap versions and then write in them. To take possession of the books, not to be scared of the book, be intimidated by it. It also means you're listening to the teacher, you're writing down, and you're going to remember it. And when you come back, it just jumps out at you, these notes. It's a great way of remembering. Writing your own stuff and making annotations in the book makes it a living document. Anyway, that's why I do it. 5. Introductions and footnotes. Do you read them or avoid? I tend to read them. Specifically footnotes. The problem with footnotes, there's two ways. There's the Harvard system, in which you add it to the text, or the Oxford system, which is a number or whatever symbol you're using, and then at the bottom, which means it doesn't break up the text. And for instance, you can see this is the book I wrote, Royal Navy, just an average page, and you can see all of the Oxford style notes at the bottom. So this one, 286, I've written something out, but then I've explained it underneath rather than in the text, because it just makes the text a bit more laborious. I do like introductions and footnotes. Recently did this one, and the introduction inside is really important because it talks about translation from the compiler of this, but also about the man himself, Fitzgerald. Now, if I'd have just read the Rubaiyat and there had been no introduction, it would not have given me a full, complete understanding of how it came to be and the various versions that were made, and about Fitzgerald himself and his place in literature, and how he came to dominate translations at the time, especially the esoteric. So they can be very important for a real full understanding, especially of old books. They often give you an historical context and grounding and so on. So yeah, I think the introductions and the footnotes are as valuable as the actual writing itself. And bear this in mind, a publisher has thought that it was important enough to include, because there's always a cost to extra page and ink. So they must be there for a reason. And I've just found my yellow one. So back to the colours. 6. Accessories. Do you use bookish accessories like a clip-on reading light? No, never. Book sleeve? No. Annotation materials? Yes. Bookstand? No. No. I know this is coming up next about digital. I just love the book on itself. It's the feel, it's the weight of them often. I mean, this one here, this is quite heavy. Wonderful. Pen inside, and you can see that I've been making notes. I found it in a thrift shop, and I prefer this. But in itself, it doesn't require anything else. It's just on its own. I came across a book like that, quite old, and it was full of people's writing. Not just one person's. You could tell it was different writing. And when I first came across it, I was shocked. How dare they do this to this book? And I was a young man then. And over time, I've come to realise I'm glad they did, because it made the play much, or the plays I was reading, I think it was Taming of the Shrew, I think it was. I'd seen the film with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, rambunctious movie. And then I read the play, and it just helped. All these notes and stuff, it was just a wonderful find. In fact, more memorable than reading the play, if I'm honest. But no, I do annotate, obviously, materials, and that's about it. 7. Art and illustrations. How do cover art and illustrations affect your reading experience? Well, they don't, not the cover. Although, obviously, the benefit of the cover, it gets your attention. It's the first thing you probably see. This one, for instance, The Legend of Grace O'Malley, Gronya Niwalia. It's going to grab your attention. But obviously the uniqueness of the book inside is going to grab your attention because of the artwork. But you're not going to keep thinking about this one. So yeah, it gets your attention. The illustrations really do help. This one I'm about to do another episode on. What a man Jacob was. Because inside you get illustrations as part of the text. And it just adds flavour, texture. It's a bit like, I suppose, if you have a meal and it's just meat and potatoes. Well, nice. But without any seasoning, it can be bland. So the seasoning in a book are the images. And they really do help. And especially, I'm trying to find some coloured ones here, especially that. And you can see at Ep 3, that's where I'm going to do a third episode. So I'm about to do the second, that's how far ahead I am. And I'm going to start from here. So folding of page. I've talked about this one quite a lot, so I won't talk about it more. But illustrations are wonderful. I just love them. Format. Which format of books do you prefer? Hardback, paperback, audio, digital. Do you do different things for different situations? I think that assumes different formats. So years ago, when I moved to New Zealand, I got myself a Kindle. This was around about 2007, 2008. I think it was. And I noticed there's a unique thing here about the sun. I've noticed it with some cameras. The light, the sun, is so bright, you can often not see the screen of a Kindle very well. That may have changed. And it just put me off the e-reader. I use a Mac computer, I'm looking at it now, and there is like a thing called Books that you can download books, and I've tried to read them from the screen, and it's odd because I could spend hours playing an online game on Steam and not be a problem. I could read from the screen, so Google Scholar or Google Books is just a fantastic find. But generally I can't, it drains me. I don't know what it is. I don't prefer ebooks. I prefer the hardback or paperback, and I have no preference on either. So this is a paperback. It's quite big. It could be as big and as heavy as a hardback. So I don't really have any preference as to which one. I went out recently and got The Sound of the Mountain by Yasunari Kawabata. $2 in a thrift shop. The artwork caught my attention. Didn't know nothing about the book. It's also this wonderful yellowness around the edges because of age. Thankfully it doesn't smell. But it's just a delight to have. If you go into thrift shops, or op shops as they're called here, you can't control the format that you're going to get, but you are attracted to certain things like the front cover. So it doesn't really matter the format. And look at these old things. I read these, not these particular ones, but these books in the 80s. And it looks like this may come from the 80s. I remember the colour. Oh, they're upside down. Julian May, Saga of the Exiles. Definitely looking forward to reading it. Many Coloured Land. I remember the Golden Talk. I don't remember the Non-Born King. But the format doesn't matter. Book's a book as far as I'm concerned. But I do not get on with digital. And I've never ever got on with audiobooks. Don't like them. I prefer visual. So that's it. So tagging people, I know who I'm going to tag. I've got some in mind, but I'll wait until I've done the episode. So thank you, John, for the tag, and thank you, Sarah, for the original one. The Bookish Elements tag. I do like doing this kind of thing. So hopefully I've done the questions justice. Please step over and say hello to John at Must Read More. Really good channel. I love his work. He's moved positions now in the room and he's got this very languid southern drawl. I love it. Could listen to it for hours. So, thank you very much. And ta-ta for now.